Today, we are going to the coldest, driest, and most remote place on Earth, Antarctica. But listen, this is no nature documentary. We're about to uncover the declassified history of a secret war fought on the ice, a hidden chapter of the Cold War, where superpowers went head-to-head over a prize buried deep, deep beneath the frozen surface.
Okay, so let's just jump right into the central mystery that kicks this whole thing off. The year is 1947. And the most powerful naval armada ever to visit the Antarctic suddenly, and I mean suddenly, turns around and retreats, months ahead of schedule. The official story just doesn't add up. So what on earth really happened down there? The scale of this thing was just staggering. We are talking about 4,700 US military personnel. To put that into perspective, that is more people than lived in a lot of American towns back then. All of them sent to the very bottom of the world. The mission had a code name, of course, Operation Highjump. And I mean, just look at this. This was no small-scale science trip. This force had aircraft carriers, destroyers, bombers, helicopters, even tanks. The official purpose? Oh, just to establish a scientific research base. But does this really look like a simple research expedition to you?
And this, right here, is where it gets really weird. This massive 8-month mission was suddenly and completely inexplicably called off after just a few weeks. The entire fleet just pulled out, a full 6 months early, and the Pentagon offered zero official explanation. Something had gone terribly, terribly wrong.
The only real clue came from the operations commander himself, the legendary polar explorer Admiral Richard Byrd. When he got back, he gave this really chilling public statement. He wasn't talking about scientific discovery. No. He was talking about a new kind of war, a war coming from the poles. What in the world did they find down there?
To answer that, we have to look at the other major player in this insane game of chess, because it turns out the Americans were not alone on the ice. So you have these two parallel stories going on. The US claims they're there for science, but they bring a massive military force. At the exact same time, the Soviet Union sends its Slava fleet, officially for whaling, but sources suggest its real purpose was to set up a counter-presence, basically to shadow the Americans. You've got two superpowers, two cover stories.
So what happened? Well, one of the main theories is that Operation Highjump didn't just find ice and penguins. They ran headfirst into a surprisingly tough Soviet military group. The Americans were expecting a totally empty continent. Instead, they found another superpower staring right back at them. That just brings up an even bigger question. Why? Why would the US and the Soviet Union be playing these incredibly dangerous military games over a frozen wasteland? The answer, it turns out, lies in one single world-changing resource.
Okay, so you have to remember, the year is 1946. The world had just seen the horrifying power of the atomic bomb. The new global arms race, it wasn't for steel or for oil anymore. It was a desperate, frantic hunt for uranium to build up nuclear arsenals. And both superpowers were willing to go literally anywhere to find it. And this wasn't just some wild guess. Declassified documents show that during World War II, US intelligence already suspected that Antarctica was a major source for uranium. The hunt for this atomic fuel actually started years before Highjump. So, where did they get that idea? Well, the answer leads right back to the enemy they had just defeated. And if you trace that intelligence all the way back to its source, you find a truly unbelievable connection to the power that had just lost World War II, Nazi Germany. This is absolutely mind-blowing. On the exact same day, December 17, 1938, two incredible things happened. In a lab in Berlin, German scientists achieved nuclear fission for the first time, splitting the atom. And at the same time, in Hamburg, a Nazi expedition ship set sail for Antarctica. This was no coincidence. This was the start of the race for the South Pole's atomic prize. So the plan basically unfolded like this. Germany's top nuclear physicist, Werner Heisenberg, he theorized that some old rock samples pointed to massive uranium deposits in Antarctica. So the Schwabenland was sent on a secret mission to confirm it. They mapped out this huge new territory they called New Schwabia, but before they could actually start digging anything up, World War II broke out. The secret of Antarctic uranium was put on hold, only to be picked up by the victorious Allies. So, after the war, with both superpowers now knowing about Antarctica's potential, that standoff that started with Operation Highjump, it escalated fast. The continent was on the brink of conflict, and the tension forced a very unique diplomatic solution.
By 1958, the Cold War on ice had turned hot. The US conducted a series of secret high-altitude nuclear tests called Operation Argus, actually detonating atomic bombs above the Antarctic region. The official reason was to test a theory about a radiation shield against Soviet missiles, but let's be real, it was a terrifying show of force over this disputed continent.
The world's scientific community was, understandably, outraged, and the risk of nuclear war was just too high. So, in 1959, the superpowers actually came together and signed the landmark Antarctic Treaty. The entire continent was declared a demilitarized zone dedicated only to peace and science, and all those territorial claims, they were frozen in time.
I mean, the treaty was a really stunning achievement of diplomacy, especially happening right in the middle of the Cold War. It literally transformed Antarctica from a potential nuclear battlefield into the world's largest science lab, a continent governed by cooperation instead of conflict. The immediate crisis was over.
But was the conflict really resolved, or was it just put on ice? Let's talk about the future. Because the treaty had one crucial feature. It didn't solve the problem, it just kicked the can down the road.
And this right here is the critical takeaway. The treaty didn't make the competing claims from 7 different nations just disappear. It just hit the pause button. Those lines on the map are still there, just waiting for the treaty to weaken or expire. The question of who owns Antarctica was never, ever settled.
And why do these frozen claims still matter so much? Because we now know Antarctica holds way more than just uranium. As estimates from the US Geological Survey show, we're talking about a potential 7 billion tons of oil and 4 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. It is the last great untapped treasure chest on the entire planet.
Which leaves us with this final, pretty unsettling question. The Antarctic Treaty has kept the peace for over 60 years. But in a future where resources are getting more and more scarce, is a piece of paper really going to be enough to stop nations from trying to claim the immense wealth buried under all that ice? The frozen conflict might not be over. It might just be waiting for the ice to melt.